One of the most important things about your life purpose that most people don't understand is that it has to do with what brings you joy. If you are on a path that does not make you happy, that does not bring you joy, you are not in your lane. A lot of people, because they ask me this, and I'll say to them, what makes you happy? What brings you joy? That's what you came here to do. And they go, I don't know. You have got so much talent here, and it's important for all of us that we honor our entire chart, not just the money-making part.
Hey guys, welcome to this episode of the Game On Girlfriend podcast. You are in for a special treat today because I am bringing you Wendy Cicchetti, world-renowned astrologer. She's amazing. She does spiritual and holistic astrology readings with people, and she's also a fantastic coach around those ideas. And she also helps people study Akashic Records. She's a consultant for that as well. She's my aunt. And I have a feeling by the end of today's episode, you may very well end up feeling like you can call her Aunt Wendy as well. She just has that mother-like energy. You want to turn to her. It's very comfortable to listen to what she has to say. You're going to hear a little bit about my personal story and how I transitioned from corporate to what I do now. My Aunt Wendy was actually really instrumental in helping me understand what was happening for me at the time of that transition. It was just so interesting to me. And I'll be totally honest, I've always been super skeptical about astrology. It's like, what? How is that a thing? And so maybe you can relate to that, or maybe you're fully into it and you love it. Either way, what Wendy brings to it is just this common sense approach to the entire, I'm going to call it an industry, right? Like this whole world of astrology and spiritual teachings and past lives. And we discuss all of these things and how that pertains to any instincts or new ideas that are like edging into your subconscious, right? They keep coming at you. So there's kind of this approach to understanding your own intuition, understanding any other forces that may be at work when you're feeling the nudge to make a big decision or to go in a different area. And we also talk about, the teeny tiny question people tend to ask, which is, what is my life's purpose, right? And when someone comes to her and asks this question, what does she say and how does she support somebody who's asking that question? I'd also like for you to listen for the Capricorn imperative. She blew my mind with this entire concept. So if any of these questions are important to you, or if you've ever thought astrology is fascinating or amazing, or even if you thought it was a bunch of hooey, I think you're going to really enjoy this week's episode with the amazing Wendy Cicchetti, who I'm proud to call my aunt as well. You're going to want to pop in those earphones because I'm pretty sure I swore. I don't think she did, but I think I did. And let's get to it. Wendy, welcome to the Game On Girlfriend podcast. I'm like beyond excited that you're here. Is that possible? I think I am though. How in the world did you get into astrology? What do you love about this?
Well, I usually tell people this who question what I do, do you believe that God created the heavens and the earth? And they go, well, yeah. And you think that they don't have any impact on us if he created them?
Yeah.
Of course they do. We already know. I mean, just the moon itself, every month the tides come in and people go crazy. That's where lunatics came from.
I love that. No, it's so true, right? Yeah.
And so to me, it's incredulous to believe that all of God's creations wouldn't impact us or affect us in some way. And of course, with our connection together and the times that we've spent doing astrology, how helpful it is.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Holistic astrology is one of the most helpful things that people can do to understand why they are who they are and what's going on in their lives. Oh my gosh, why am I going crazy? Well, I can tell you that by just looking at your chart based on the planetary alignments.
The day I decided to leave my job, right? I watched the ficus tree leaf fall from the ficus tree and I was like, I'm out of here. I cannot spend any more minutes in here. Is that I would call my Aunt Wendy and she's like, oh yeah, what was it? I can't remember.
You have Uranus conjunct your sun.
That was the one. And you were like, you are going to be shoved into making a decision. And I remember thinking, come on. And sure enough, I was shoved into making a decision. And I think it's so interesting to take that kind of an education and bring in I mean, don't we all just want to bring in every tool we can that can support
Yeah.
us and help us? And so bringing something like that in, or being able to talk to you about that and sort of like, is that what's happening? Is that part of like what is going on here? And understanding all the different elements that might be pulling at us.
And I told you at the time, there's always a safety net. When you follow your path, when you follow the imperative and you let go and trust, then there's a safety net. And I remember 2 or 3 weeks later, you got a job at home that
Yes,
paid you as much as you were getting paid with your other job.
that's correct. That's
And,
correct.
it's always there. We just
Yeah.
have to trust and listen.
Yeah. There's a combination going on. Like we were just saying, there's so many tools, right? So I love what you're saying about your expertise and understanding that Uranus is in there pushing. And I think whether that comes through energies or ideas or our own instincts, there's a physical response when something needs to change. We feel it, right? And we really know that it's actually time. And it was so helpful for me to understand more about what was happening for me at that time. Because I don't think I had, I'm gonna say something crazy. I don't think I had the level of self-trust then either. And I think
Yeah.
that I do now. And I think that moment really
Shift.
helped me understand
Yeah.
that.
Well, what happens is typically an evolutionary phase.
Mm.
You needed to evolve past where you were, and look where you are today.
So when somebody calls you and asks you, oh, a teeny tiny question like, hey, what's my life's purpose? How do you address that? Like, what happens?
Well, one of the most important things about your life purpose that most people don't understand is that it has to do with what brings you joy. If you are on a path that does not make you happy, that does not bring you joy, you are not in your lane.
Okay.
Oftentimes, like you say, we get caught up in making money and we don't think about the joy. We don't think about the happiness. I mean, when I do a consultation with a client and I change the course of their life,
Seriously.
it makes me really happy. Now,
just the little things that you do.
I know. Well, a lot of people, because they ask me this, and I'll say to them, what makes you happy? What brings you joy? That's what you came here to do. And they go, I don't know.
I knew you were going to say that. Is that really like the most common answer is I just don't know?
I would say 50%.
Okay. Okay.
50%. The other 50% are those that know what they want. They just haven't yet been able to, like you, they haven't been able to leave where they are financially, and I get lots of women who can't move forward because they don't have the money and they're in an abusive relationship. They want to go into art. They want to do this. They want to do that. And they feel so stuck.
Yes.
So that's about 50%.
Okay.
Of the people. They know what they want, but they can't move. The other 50% are like, how do I know? How do I find that? Well, when I'm looking at a person's chart, I can see their talent and I'll start asking them, as an example, have you ever done any art? Oh, I did when I was in high school and I really loved it. But then, I got pregnant and blah, blah, blah. And I haven't gone back to it. And I said, okay, you haven't made time for your talents. Well, no, it's not practical.
Yeah.
So, there are all kinds of reasons that people don't experiment too. And I tell people, experiment, take an art class. You're so talented. And I say, I'm seeing this and I'm seeing this and I'm seeing this. You're extremely talented in music or in art or in dance or other things like creative writing. I see that in a chart all the time. Why aren't you writing? Oh, I don't know. It's not that they don't have the talent, they don't have the confidence.
Wow.
That's huge.
Yeah.
You have got so much talent here, and it's important for all of us that we honor our entire chart, not just the money-making part. People have no idea how satisfying it is too when you get older. Like I'm in my 70s, I didn't know I was an artist until I was in my late 50s. Creativity is very high frequency. And the whole thing about what we're doing on this planet right now is raising our frequency, getting above the third dimensional stuff and moving higher into, the more spiritual realms, the more higher frequency realms. And so while you're doing a project of whatever it is, whether it's writing or dancing or whatever, it becomes a meditation.
Yes, I've definitely experienced that for sure.
And it raises your frequency.
We kind of feel called to do something, but we're too scared to take action, whether it's really kind of pushing up against
Tradition.
anything that would keep us from doing it.
The Capricorn imperative.
Oh, what's that? I don't know what that means. Tell me all the
Capricorn
things.
imperative is business. Capricorn is all about big business, big money, big government. And, that's what we've been bucking for so long. And Uranus and Saturn, which is the ruler of Capricorn, are doing this dance right now, breaking up the structure of Capricorn. And that's why we see our government falling apart. That's why we see the world falling apart.
This idea that money or making money, especially if you're helping people, right? It doesn't matter, but making money equals greedy. And really understanding, I was talking to a client about it, and we were sharing like really growing up in the 80s, the way we did, everybody wanted the money, but the people we saw with the money were a bunch of jackwagons, right? Like these were not nice people who were making the money. And I think we've made this like connection that this is sort of an outdated paradigm that's now breaking up. That's so interesting. So we call it now the Capricorn imperative. I'm happy we have a title for the mess that is occurring in the moment.
Right. Well, and I have so many clients that say the same thing. Well, I had to make money.
Right.
I had to do my duty. A lot of women who have children, what I do encourage people to do who have made other choices and, they're waiting for their children to go to college or whatever, is that, in their spare moments, start studying, start reading, maybe take a class towards those things that you have an interest in, so that you've got one foot in this workaday world in the Capricorn imperative, and then you have another foot into doing what you love.
I mean, I think we live in such an all or nothing world. Commit. If you're not in it, you're, that nonsense that I call it the bro way. And I love this gentle approach to like, there's always a way to feed your soul and keep your social contracts, and like this BS idea that, well, if you're not in, man, like that's not, I don't think it has to go that way. And I love that you just shared that. I think that's really important for people to hear and understand. There's not two paths. There's thousands of paths in front of you that you can take. Yeah.
You can say, thank you, God, for showing me my next steps along my path. I say that every day as part of my meditation. Thank you, God, for showing me my next steps today.
I love that. It's, that exact phrase, like, what are my best next steps? This is one of the most common questions I get. It's like, but Sarah, how do I know? How do I know what's next? How do I know if that's the right step for me to take? And so it's so great the way you're talking about this, that this is actually something you can put in your gratitude practices. Thank you for always making the next step so clear. Like that's actually something we could do or say. I think it's lovely.
And, oftentimes something will come into your head and you shake it off. So watch for it to come again. And if it comes 3 times and you haven't paid attention, that's a 2x4, folks.
I call that one when 3 people tell you you're drunk, lie down. That's my favorite, is like, come on, if you've heard it 3 times, let's get with the program here, people. Oh. So let's move on to question number 2 that you get the most often, which is life partner, want the love of my life.
Typically, women are looking for that wonderful partner to be their life partner. And there's a particular type of visual that people look for, which is, very romantic, treated like a queen, this wonderful concept. And a lot of that, by the way, has been propagated by the media. We think that that's the only way we can have a wonderful relationship. We have to be skinny and we have to have good clothes, and we have, that's all propagated by the media, all of it. none of that is as important as the chemistry and also trust and respect, communication,
Mm-hmm.
being of like mind. What I like people to look for is spiritual,
Mm-hmm.
uh, what's the right word? Compatibility.
Yeah.
Because that is huge. If
Mm.
you're of two different religions, oh my God, it is just messy.
Mm.
You want to have as much um, likes and the way you deal with things like holidays and birthdays and all of those things. You want as many of those as possible that are alike. Okay. And I use the gratitude formula with my clients on that. I had used it with myself before I met my husband, which is thank you, God, for showing me my life partner
Mm.
at the perfect time and in the perfect way. Thank you, God, for doing that. And
Mm.
I've seen a lot of success with that. I was dealing actually with a psychic. Her name was Joni. She was out of Washington State. And she one day she said, "This is what I want you to do." She said, "I want you to take a piece of paper and I want you to write down everything you want in a companion.
Mm.
Everything, spiritual and qualities." So I wrote down on this spiritual equality or similarity. I wrote down a good sense of humor, somebody that would love me just the way I am, that he would get along with my children,
Mm.
and that there would be, good common interests and fun. I got all of that. I said nothing about money.
Mm.
And I said nothing about looks. But when Joni said to do this, she said, roll it up after you do it. And I kept a copy of it, by the way, and then burn it. And she said, you send the smoke, or meaning the intention for manifestation.
Mm.
And then it was about 6 weeks before the voice started coming into my head saying, log on to CompuServe. I had read Celestine Prophecy and I was interested in meditation. I put that in the search bar on CompuServe and ended up in the mind meditation section of CompuServe. And I started reading posts. I'd never been in a forum before, started reading these posts, and I liked what I was reading. And so I made up a post entitled Like Minds and Friends, and I sent it to those 10 people. And one of the people that got back to me was my current husband.
Like, I think sometimes we have visions of things, right? We can have pictures of things. So you have this image of what you want in a partner going out into the world, and then the nudge to go on to CompuServe, and there he was.
When you turn it over to God and stop putting restrictions on it by your thinking.
So really like going with the flow and being open enough to accepting what happens as it happens, and really trusting that there's actually some logic behind this. There's a path that you're being led down. Before we jump off, we have a few minutes left today. I did want to touch on past lives. So people call you and say, listen, I want to understand more about past lives. How do you direct somebody to understand that?
The best way to do that is through the Akashic Records. And I teach the Akashic Records and teach you how to access your own records. And through this and through that high frequency connection that you're given when you take the classes, you're able to get answers to information. I didn't know what my past lives were either until I learned about the Akashic Records. And like being a nun before, I knew I'd been a nun, and I asked the question and it said, yes, this is who you were. This is when you were
Wow.
doing it.
So really understanding the Akashic Records, and that is something you teach.
Yes.
Which leads me to my next question. So let's say somebody's been listening to this conversation and they're like, I want a reading. I want to know if I'm Capricorning all of the things, or if I am not listening when I'm getting signs, right? Like, how does somebody get in touch with you, and what could they do with you?
You can get a hold of me at Wendy at twixtearthandsky.com. And then I can direct you, or you can go to my website, which is twixtearthandsky.com. And then up in the right-hand corner, it says services and payments, and you can go there and you'll see the list. But just briefly, if you're just starting with me, the full life reading is what you want. That's a 90-minute reading that tells you so much. It'll kind of blow your mind, and it's recorded, and it takes you, you have to re-listen to it and listen to it because there's so much information. And then I do spiritual and astrological coaching, which so many people just love because they want to sometimes just talk to me. They just want to talk to me and get advice about their lives. And then, of course, the Akashic classes. And, there are all kinds of things like relationship and children's readings. And if you're a mother or a parent and you want to know about your children, then you should have their charts done. It makes a big difference, doesn't it, Sarah?
Yes, it does. She sent me mine. They were birthday presents for my children, and really understanding a little bit more about what makes them tick and how you can work with them and have them thrive, I think is the best way for me to describe it. Like, really speak to your children in a way that has them thrive, but also when it comes to disciplining or boundaries, and also understanding how to do that in a way that the child can hear, was really powerful. Very good stuff. Well, Wendy, thank you so much for spending time with me today. I feel like all of our listeners and viewers just got an inside scoop on hanging out with our family for a little bit, which is so fun. So welcome, everybody. And I just am so grateful. We will put all of the links to Wendy's information either under this video or in the show notes. You'll be able to grab that. And in addition, we'll do a special link to the full life reading that she was talking about. So if that's your first step, or you really want to understand a little bit more about your own astrology and what the heck that means for you, you can just grab that link. Wendy, thank you again.
You're welcome, Sarah. It's always lovely to be with you. You're a bright light.